This is one of the most important places for migrating birds in the whole of the South American continent. It's technically protected by 2 international agreements, but man's intervention is threatening to spoil it. The marshlands are a complex mosaic of different habitats. Their lifeblood, fresh water, flows from the heart through a series of tiny capillaries, larger vessels and arteries, to the ocean. Uruguay, a small subtropical country, is hemmed in by 2 giants, Argentina and Brazil. Its third frontier is the South Atlantic Ocean. The marshlands lie southeast in the province of Rocha. Along the coast, a range of moving sand dunes, and behind them a chain of coastal lagoons which are joined to the ocean for several months of the year. At the heart of the region, marshlands, swamps, rivers and open stretches of water, all interconnected and interdependent, form the wetlands. Round the edges are a series of rocky mountainous outcrops with their own specific flora and fauna. They're important because they harbour some of the last areas of indigenous woodland still remaining in Uruguay. These natural highlands cover only 3% of the territory and have a great diversity of flora, some of which may have promising applications. This is Mount San Miguel on the border with Brazil, and one of the last places where the 17th century breed of cattle introduced by the Spanish conquistadors still survives. Down on the plains, cattle ranching has meant the disappearance of this traditional breed, but here a Creole calf is defending its territory against a Hereford intruder. The ombu. Its grandeur reminds one of the African baobab. The ombu usually grows singly or in pairs, but at the neck of the lagoon, a wood has been formed. It's one of the few places on Earth where this has happened. It's only in recent times that the role played by the world's wetlands has begun to be understood. Marshes and bogs used to be considered insalubrious, and progress meant drying them up. In fact, the wetlands are every bit as crucial to the ecological balance of the planet as the tropical rainforests. Wetlands are one of the most fertile, productive ecosystems on Earth. Marsh plants like the wild canna lily act as filters, fixing contaminants. In some countries, the water hyacinth is used to purify sewage. These marshlands and lagoons are one of the most important stopping over places for migrating birds in the neotropical region of South America. Thousands of plovers fly over 20,000 kilometers from Canada, where they breed, to enjoy the southern summer. This 2-banded plover comes north from the Falkland Islands. But the wetlands are also a vital refuge for 147 out of a total of 400 native Uruguayan birds. This scarlet-headed blackbird, or federal bird, is puffing out its feathers in a territorial display. A larger marsh bird is the limpkin, related to the crane. Two males are competing for a female in a ritual display of aggression. Since 1976, nearly all of this region has been included in the worldwide network of biosphere reserves as part of UNESCO's Man in the Biosphere program. In 1984, Uruguay also ratified the International Convention protecting wetlands, known as Ramsar, designating these marshlands for conservation. Its local name is onomatopoeic, chaha, and the southern screamer's cry is a familiar sound in shallow areas of the marshlands where it lives. It looks heavy and ungainly, but its bulk is deceptive. It's all feather and bones. The pair are monogamous, and during incubation, the bonding is reinforced by this grooming activity. Sharing the marshlands in slightly deeper water are thousands of black-necked swans, native to the southern cone and South Brazil. Like most waterfowl, the swan waterproofs its plumage from an oil gland, in this case found at the base of its tail. The eastern marshlands are home to 12 of the 20 species of duck which are native to Uruguay. The white-faced tree duck, or siriri, is one of them. It nests in trees or palms close to the water's edge. The silver teal with its pale blue lower beak. It's a duck which is usually to be found in groups with other waterfowl. The South American stilt. A little further along is the ubiquitous southern lapwing. Speckled teals. Poaching has made ducks very wary of humans. And not just the ducks. The name Uruguay means river of the painted birds in the Guarani language. This gira cuckoo, or pirincho, is one of them. It does well even in urban environments. It moves about in noisy groups, and like other cuckoos, it lays its eggs in other birds' nests. The nyandu, or rare, roams the pastures in small groups made up of a male and several females. But its numbers are dwindling fast because of the destruction of its habitat and competition from grazing cattle. The rare is a protected species, but it's hunted for its eggs and especially for its plumes, much in demand for carnival costumes. Poachers come over the border from Brazil, knowing that Uruguay is lax about enforcing its protection laws. The crested cara, known here as the carancho, is a carrion eater and plays an important role in the ecology of the countryside in this cattle and sheep ranching land. Country people often shoot these chimangos, thinking they attack lambs. In fact, they're also carrion eaters. This juvenile is begging the parent bird for food. Conservation and cattle raising can be compatible over large areas, and the cattle grow fat on the all-year-round aquatic plants. During droughts, ranchers whose land includes natural marshes can actually find themselves better off than those who have undertaken costly drainage works. These are the extraordinary palm groves of Rocha, where the native butia palm grows by the thousand. There's nowhere else like it in the world. But these trees, most of them anything between 150 and 200 years old, are doomed to die out unless something is done to protect them. Here, cohabitation with grazing animals is having serious consequences. The natural regeneration process of the palms is being cut short because the animals simply eat the new seedlings as soon as they appear. Botanists have been studying this process in a properly fenced-off area, and it's quite clear what's gone wrong. Along the edges of roads, the only parts where the cattle can't reach, new palms are springing up vigorously to replace the old. It would be a great loss to Rocha if these palms were allowed to die out. The fruit of the butia palm is delicious, especially as a flavoring for liqueurs. The nuts also contain valuable oil. Local people sell the fruit and other products, but it's all very precarious. Proper management of the butia palm could provide badly needed jobs. Another natural resource of the marshes is the caraguatá plant, traditionally used by local people for arts and crafts. It's back-breaking, badly paid work, but if production were properly organized, perhaps in cooperatives, this craft might take on a new lease of life. People have been using marsh rushes and reeds for building their homes since time immemorial. It's cool in summer and warm in winter, although the thatch needs replacing every 12 to 15 years. The ovenbird's another master builder who makes the most of local materials. Male and female take it in turn to build the nest out of mud and straw, each one tidying up the other's work. Their home is finished off with a curving entranceway to keep out the wind and to protect their young from extremes of hot and cold. In financial terms, the most important marshlands resource today is the koipeu, or nutria. This man has been hunting the koipeu all his life, but is the first to agree that overhunting has decimated the population. Catches of the koipeu have fallen by 2/3 since 1981, though in 1988, for example, the sale of furs still represented a hefty $3 million. It's only thanks to the koipeu's phenomenal reproductive capacity that it has survived at all. A female has her first litter at about 6 months old, anything from 5 to 12 pups, and she can have up to 3 litters in a 12-month period. The hunter sets his trap in the koipeu's tracks or next to its platform, but the trap will make no distinction between pregnant females, adult males, or young animals. Unless there is proper control and inspection at all stages of the fur trade, the koipeu will gradually go the way of the marshland's other bigger rodent, the capybara. The hunter promised to track down a capybara, but could only find its dung. 20 years ago, capybara could be seen plentifully in broad daylight, but indiscriminate poaching has drastically reduced the population. Soon you'll only be able to watch them in zoos.
No hay ningún cazador que no piense de que cada vez hay menos nutria, porque si cada vez se está agarrando menos y cada vez hay menos, entonces si el tipo tampoco, yo por ejemplo soy un cazador que cazo hace 30 años, desde que tengo 12 años, hace 28 años, perdón. Y yo me doy cuenta, yo lo que tengo lo he hecho cazando nutria, entonces qué mejor que reacomodemos la cosa y en vez de agarrar 4 nutrias con 10 trampas, agarrar 8, 9 o 10. Si uno está cazando un promedio de 10 nutrias por día, diaria, ¿no? Serían al mes 300 pieles, ¿no? 300 pieles, $5, serían $1.500 al mes. Y es un ingreso bastante bueno, ¿no? Sí, más que bueno. Por eso es que hay que cuidar, ¿no? Yo soy cazador, pero a su vez desearía que se protegiera más.
The Koipu hunter will only respect the annual quotas if he sees that the state is serious about conservation. Autumn mornings bring thick mists down over this cattle ranch. The place is alive with yellow-breasted marsh birds. The owner is sympathetic to conservation, and there's an almost untouched area of marsh grassland on his property. The marsh birds twitter incessantly to each other and display their bright feathers to reinforce the social bonding. Maintaining areas of the country in their wild state allows even the rarest species to survive. Birds like this pinnated bittern. This estancia is also the place where one of the last two populations of pampas deer are surviving in the wild. Thousands of pampas deer once roamed across the plains of South America. Today there are only a few hundred left in the world. During rutting, the male marks its territory by rubbing its head against plants or posts, leaving a powerful smell of garlic hanging in the air. The scent gland is between its nose and eyes. There is still time to save this endangered species. The coastal lagoons are a vital link between the marshlands and the ocean. Of all of them, Rocha Lagoon is the most important for migratory birds. These black skimmers skim the water and scoop up tiny fish with their beaks. It's essential not to tamper with the natural opening up of the lagoon in winter, which makes the water brackish and encourages plankton, favorite food of these South American flamingos. The flamingo young are grey in colour, and it may well be that flamingos are nesting close by, another good reason for protecting these coastal lagoons. A fisherman goes upriver to another lagoon, slightly further inland. It's strangely quiet, as if the birds had deserted the place. This is a favourite spot for poachers of duck and capybara. Is that why it's so deathly quiet? This lagoon is the centre of a modest seasonal prawn fishing trade. The prawn larvae swim upriver when the mouth is open in winter and develop all year in the lagoon until they're ready to make their way back down to the ocean. The prawn fishermen are striking camp after the 3-month season. The export value of freshwater fish and crustaceans is potentially important, and this kind of fish farming is being developed in many parts of the world. It could well be a solution here too. The river from the lagoon to the ocean is called balizas, or marker buoys, the name given to it by the Spanish conquistadors who would come in here to collect fresh water. The cormorant is one of the few waterfowl without a lubricating gland. It has to dry its plumage carefully when it's on land or risk drowning when it makes its next dive. Local people do a little fishing and a little poaching. They complain that agricultural pesticides are draining into the river and killing off the fish. These sand dunes are a famous landmark and have been singled out for preservation, yet they too are destined to disappear. Down the coast where the dunes rise, a forestation program with introduced trees like pines has fixed the sands, and the dunes are no longer reforming each year. Unless forestation is carefully controlled, the dunes will be no more than a ripple on the horizon in a few years from now.
Yo pesqué de que mi madre me tuvo, porque cuando ella pescaba mi madre para mantenerme y a todos mis hermanos. Y nacimos, los dejaba de vista al costado de la barranca para ir a pescar. Así que tengo 43 años, me crié en la orilla del arroyo. Conozco bien el pescado, conozco perfectamente bien.
¿Y ahora cómo andas?
Bueno, ahora es malísimamente. Malísimamente porque los terminaron. Rompieron los pisos de pesca, las empresas grandes. Y bueno, y cada vez menos. Estuvimos haciendo zafra de 5.000 kilos de bacalao, bajamos a 3, bajamos a 1,5 toneladas y ahora este año 200 kilos. Ya no es rentable. Los prometieron un poco de ayuda, pero nunca se hizo efectivo eso. Ahora los prometieron de vuelta. Es toda una farsa, es porque se le agarran los arriba y nosotros nunca tocamos nada. Y aquí estamos como bellezas naturales.
It's not difficult to see that wetlands are important for fauna and flora, but are there any other good reasons for trying to protect them? Perhaps most important of all is the role they play in collecting and storing rainwater. They sponge up excess, filter and purify, establishing a delicate equilibrium between surface drainage and the subterranean water table of a whole region. When man intervenes to upset this delicate balance, the results can be difficult to predict and sometimes unwanted. This reactivated canal now carries large quantities of fresh black water, peat, clay, and other organic debris from the lagoons and marshes to the coast. A once popular beach is now covered in debris. Might it not be more sensible to conserve this fresh water where it naturally belongs, in the wetlands system? The coast of Rocha attracts large numbers of seabirds. The rufous-breasted dotterels come from Tierra del Fuego and the Falkland Islands. The one-banded plover breeds here in the eastern marshlands. These ocean-going black skimmers doze facing the wind. Rocha, Rocha, what a place for skies. But the marshlands of Rocha have been changing dramatically over the past few years. 2 species of white monjita are using the road as a dining table, in between lorries. New roads are bringing vehicles to places where only men on horseback or in punts could reach 10 years ago. Dams, drainage canals and irrigation pumps are drying up the marshlands and altering the natural water flow of the whole area. Rice, today Uruguay's 3rd most important export item, is what has created the demand for these changes in the marshlands. The high-quality, long-grain rice produced here requires large areas of land and sophisticated irrigation techniques. Its economic importance is undeniable, but rice growing has 2 major drawbacks. It's land-hungry and it impoverishes the soil. After rice has been sown for 2 or at most 3 years in one spot, the land must lie fallow for 8 to 10 years more. This means that new areas of wetlands are continually being dried up to supply the demand. This agronomist and local landowner has studied the problem.
El pequeño propietario de tierras, cuando llega, digamos, la ola del arroz, cuando el arroz llega a su zona, tiene la tendencia de arrendar sus tierras porque la renta que recibe es importante y seguramente le va a solucionar muchos problemas económicos acuciantes que tiene en el momento. Lo que ocurre es que después que el arroz se retira, porque todos sabemos que el arroz se hace 1 año o 2 años y después es necesario un periodo de retorno, ese productor no tiene disponibilidad financiera como para mejorar ese rastrojo. Ese rastrojo queda deteriorado, de muy baja productividad y se produce, digamos, un descenso en la calidad de vida de ese productor. Nosotros pensamos que ahí el apoyo del Estado a través de crédito, asistencia técnica y algo más, tal vez una regularización de las relaciones de tenencia de tierra en el sector arrocero es importante. Pensamos que el Estado tiene que intervenir, pensamos que tal vez el Instituto Nacional de Colonización sería uno de los organismos que podría estar regularizando eso, además de otros organismos tipo plan agropecuario que podrían y están ya trabajando para mejorar la asistencia a ese productor.
Uruguay's single gravest environmental problem today is soil erosion. These open wounds are producing soil loss at an alarming rate. Add this to the degradation of the wetlands and you have a recipe for trouble. Lying below Mount San Miguel is what was once a marshland, part of the protected area. A great deal of the eastern marshlands has already been altered, some of it irrevocably. The international agreements protecting the wetlands exist. The current challenge is to make sure these agreements are respected. All over the planet, the relentless advance of a certain kind of development is obliterating the last corners of the natural world. Wise development surely means protecting these places and learning to value the secrets which they hold.